So hello and welcome to Handmade Oxford Online, the interactive virtual craft fair running from Wednesday the 15th to Sunday the 19th of September. We are so excited to be joined by Judith Blacklock, who's going to be sharing her knowledge of the art of floral arranging. Now, for those of you who haven't joined us before and joined with us with Judith, Judith is the founder of the Judith Blacklock Flower School. She's been teaching floristry now and her courses professionally in London for over 30 years. She's joining us from her studio in Knightsbridge, and it's going to be a lovely afternoon where we're going to be covering all there is to know about the art of floral arranging as part of Handmade Oxford Online. And what's lovely about Judith being part of Handmade Oxford Online is she was actually the founder of Flowers at Oxford. So we are really, really excited to have somebody who is really a part of Oxford, what we do. And without further ado, I'm going to be introducing Judith. So Judith, welcome. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and really excited to see what we're going to get up to this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. The screen went blank. I just wondered for a minute. I'm just going to continue. It's a blank screen, but I think that's okay.
Oh, don't! I can see you, Judith. I've just turned myself off so everybody can see you in full view, so they can see you without my face hovering on the sides there.
All right, well, that's lovely. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. And I'm absolutely delighted because I'm so fond of Oxford. I actually went to school there. And as you mentioned, I did Flowers at Oxford, which was the largest cut flower show ever seen in this country. And it was wonderful. It was absolutely great, but it was hard work. And I know setting up any event like Handmade in Oxford is also hard work. And you do such a good job and introduce so many new exciting people to the world of craft and art. Now, I'm going to be talking about flowers, and I got a prize. I've got a new book coming out in early October, which is this. This is an advanced copy. It's the only one I've got. And there's 2 copies of these for people who ask the most interesting questions. Well, so that will be interesting. We'll let you know at the end of the session who's got them. Now, I'm going to start off by saying to you, I'm going to just put a vase of flowers in front of you. And I don't want you to think this is my best work, because it is, well, but it's work that I've created to show you what's wrong when you want to put flowers in a vase. So I'm going to give you a food for thought. I'm going to place it there, turn it around, take it away, and you can be thinking, if you get bored with anything else that I'm saying, about how this is wrong. What's wrong about it? Now, can you see it all there? It's got roses in it, it's got clematis, hypericum, it's got foliage, it's got choice intonato lime dance there, and it's in this strong-sided red container. So all in all, joy to look at. You tell me what's wrong with it when we get to the questions and answers at the end. And I'll be putting it in front of the screen again, halfway through, just to recap. And by then you should have some ideas of what to look for, how to create flowers in a vase so they look great and you're happy with them. So I will hand that to Chrissy, and then I'm going to talk about how to arrange flowers. Now, there is a wealth of containers and Handmade in Oxford. If you go online, you will see that there's a lot of people producing very exciting vases. Now, it's not just vases, there's jugs, there's low bowls, there's dishes. You can put flowers in just about everything. So I've got a few ideas here for you to assess and copy if you like them, so that you can use your container to advantage. Now, the first one I'm going to use, and I've placed it on top of my wonderful, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, IKEA turntable. Inexpensive, and unfortunately right at the end of this IKEA shop, so you have to go all the way through to find it. But they are magic, and it really is a good buy. Now, on here, I have used a pin holder. Today in the world of floral design, foam, floral foam, Oasis is simply a brand of floral foam, has not been used because it has not been seen as totally biodegradable. Now, 50 years ago, it wasn't at all biodegradable. They've been working hard on it, and it's gone up to being 90% completely biodegradable. And I know that the firms that are working on it will find one, a foam that is actually totally 100% biodegradable. In the meantime, if we could just pass there is a substance which is very similar. It's not actually called floral foam, but it's this. It's called Agrofoam. Is one make, and there is Oasis is doing something very, very similar. And this is a support for keeping your stems in place. If you want to put them in a vase or a low bowl, you could always use this and wet it. And if anybody's any questions on how to use this sort of product, just make a question at the end of the show. However, today I'm not going to be using foam at all. I'm going to put that aside and show you other techniques that can keep your stems in place. And for this particular design, which is half completed, I have been using a pin holder. And a pin holder is called a Kenzan in Asia. It's called a frog in America. And here we call it a pin holder. And it's lots of pins embedded in a heavy base. And it is ideal, perfect, for flowers that come in the spring. Anything from a bulb is usually a fleshy stem, which isn't very strong. And it is so happy in just simply in water or on a pin holder. So the idea here is to put it there. I just put it and then make sure that you've got a bowl, and then the bowl is just deep enough to take enough water to cover the pinhole. Now, to cover this bowl, I've manipulated aspidistra leaves. Aspidistra, if you haven't got a garden, doesn't matter, buy a pot plant and cut from it. And this long-lasting leaf will be good for 3 months. And I'm just going to digress a little bit here and say to you that people often think that they've done something wrong or they've got the wrong flowers because their flowers don't last. There are two things to understand. First of all, the warmer the room in which you keep your flowers, the less long your flowers will last. They last much longer in a cooler environment. The other thing is that some flowers will last a long time, up to 3 months, if you have, for example, a leucadendron or a leucospermum, and other flowers like an iris or a dahlia, 3 to 5 days. But you do need to buy fresh. And again, if someone's got any questions about specific flowers, how to tell if they're fresh, just come in to me at any time or at the end, whenever suitable. So this aspidistra, 3 months or longer. Beautiful, long-lasting leaf. And I manipulate it by just putting back towards me, taking over the tip, sharpening the end with a pair of scissors, which Chrissy is kindly handing me here. I cut the end and take it through and just place it through the leaf. And then I've played a bundle of leaves into this low container. And this finished design is going to be perfect for a low coffee table and where people can look down into it. The only flower I'm going to use is this. I absolutely love it. It is a commercially grown clematis. And they look so delicate, they look so perfectly fragile that you think they wouldn't last, but they will. They will last a week. And they're really one of my flowers, favorite flowers. They've only been grown commercially for a few years, and I use them at every opportunity. So you could get away with just using 3 blooms in this design. And the aspidistra, as I mentioned, will last and last and last. And all you need to do is replace your flowers. So take it like that. I do like to keep leaves on a flower whenever possible. So I'm going to just take those through so it's easy to insert. And then 3. So you can have something like this ready if you've got guests coming. You could do the base days before, and then you just I've got 2 pin holders in here, so as I'm going to just pop that in there. There's quite a few leaves, so you just have to part the leaves so that you can be sure to get them in. And it knows that I'm in a webinar, so it's been difficult, not allowing me to put it in. There it is, there it goes. So just 3 flowers and you've got a lovely design. That's how I'll put 2 more in so you can see the effect. And when you are preparing your flowers for a vase or to arrange in any display, the trick is to always cut them stem end just before inserting in water. And the reason is that the end seals as soon as it's been out of water. So it's very important that you just cut it. And what you do, you cut it, let me just show you. You cut it at 45 degrees. Sometimes you'll read that you have to cut them at a very, very sharp angle. That's no longer true. That was a theory that came out before cut flower food became easily available. And cut flower food works. It extends the life of your flowers by up to 60%. So often when you get these, well, I did it in the past, I shouldn't really admit it, should I? Used to not use them. You must use those cut flower sachets that you buy with your flowers, and they will extend that life and really, really make them last. So there you are, an arrangement in the round that takes 5 flowers. Now, you could use a Gloriosa lily, which is absolutely beautiful, perhaps a little bit more difficult to find at this time of year. You could use a nice floppy dahlia. I've got some that the pompons, which are a bit strong and severe, but you could just use any, right, I back in full flow. Now, I wanted to explain to you that for those who are new to the flowers, doing flowers, is that if you are putting flowers into a vase and you're using one type of flower, it's very, very hard to go wrong. It'll always look good for tulips or with just freesias or lilies. And just some of them, just beautiful. But what the mistake people make is that they often want to put them in a vase that is too tall for the stems they have. Because most stems that you will buy from the supermarket or from the florist will be about 48, 49 centimetres long. And as an infallible guideline, always choose a vase that is half the height of the stems you want to put in that vase. And when you've got the stems that are 48, 49 centimetres long, when you get them home, they've been out of water usually, you take about 10% off the end of the stem, because if there's going to be any air blockages that are going to stop the uptake of water and make your flowers wilt, it'll be in that bottom 10%. So cut that off at that 45-degree angle and put them in water, and then put them in a vase that is half the height of those stems. And if you only have one vase, the best height for that vase is something between 20 and 22 centimetres. And when you, if you go, for those who aren't experienced, you go and measure your vases after what I'm doing, you'll probably find that your vases are about 30 centimetres tall, 28 to 30, and they're too tall for most stems. So always put your flowers in a vase that's half the height of the stems. You'll never go wrong. However, there's one other trick I'd like to tell you. It's about flowers can... Oh, am I still all right? Yes. Oh, good. Flowers can be one of 3 shapes. Broadly speaking, 95% of all flowers are one of 3 shapes. And the most important shape in design generally is the round shape. This beautiful carnation, I won't even worry about carnations except for about their non-leaf stems, is the most beautiful flower, and it's got a lovely round form. If you look at this rose, it's got a round form. Another rose, round form. You've got a sunflower, you've got a gerbera, you've got a bloom chrysanthemum, they're all around. So if you wanted to know how to compose a bouquet of flowers, you start with a round form in any colour you want. So if it was yellow, perhaps a sunflower. If it was, think of another one. White, it could be a gerbera or a rose. And then you start with that, and then you add to it. And the shape you add is a spray form. So this is a eustoma, commonly known as lysianthus, and it's got a spray form. It's got many flowers off one stem. And it's when you put those two flowers together, and if you've got some Alchemilla mollis somewhere, Chrissy, if you could do that, which is another spray form, you've got a composition that works. And that is really what it's all about, mixing your shapes. The third shape is a linear shape, such as this gladiola. I don't know if you can see this, gladiolus behind. Now that is a whopper, it's a really, really tall one. Absolutely beautiful. But that's the third shape, where all the flowers are close to the stem and come down the stem. So here we are. We've got another spray flower here, which is the Alchemilla mollis. And you see, by mixing the forms, you've got something that's really pleasing to the eye. You've got your dominant round shape that holds the eye, and then you've got the other spray flowers that hold it together and soften it and give additional interest. If you've got something like a mint, I've got a little mint somewhere. I have one stem that's, that is a more linear shape. This one's a bit straight, but you can put that in there, and again, you've got the composition that works. So really, that's all there is about putting flowers in a vase, is getting the right height, not too big, and then getting a mixture of shapes, and always including that round shape, unless you're just using a flower of one particular variety. And it can be a weed, it can be anything. It can be lady's mantle from the side of the road. It can be Alchemilla mollis, just a big bunch of it like that. Absolutely beautiful. Right, I digress. I'm going to go back to my arrangements, and I can give that to Chrissy. And I've got here something that is a beautiful handmade container. Absolutely love this. And what I've done is I just filled it with an absolute mass of one of the best leaves in the world. And it's got a big flashy name, which is Narcissus tricuspidata, but a very easy to remember common name, which is Boston ivy. Now, it's a very close relative to the Virginia creeper, which is Narcissus tricuspidata, sanctifolia. Don't plant it, because the leaf is untidy and doesn't look good in floral design. But this leaf, and let me take you one here, is strong, it's deciduous, but it goes into leaf very early in the year, and it is in leaf until October, late October. And from this time on, it turns the most gorgeous colours, and it goes brown at the tips, rusty red, and you get yellow, all these gorgeous colours. And there's nothing I like to do better, I don't know if you see it, it's just to put them in a fabulous vase. And I frankly would be very happy with that, just as it is. But if you wanted to add a bit of colour, a few spray roses tucked in, and this is one, just a few stems like that. And then I've got the Hypericum, St. John's wort, which is used extensively in medicine, wonderful flower. And I'm just going to take 3 stems of that. I like easy, and this design would last for weeks. And just have these, and if it was closer to Christmas, I could wire some pear cones and add those in, do all sorts of interesting things. So I'm just going to put one more in. The leaves Hypericum are never quite as beautiful as berries. So, and you could use rose hips at this time of the year. And that goes in like so. So that, quick and easy. All I've done is taken a mass, probably about 100 of these Boston ivy leaves, just put them into a lovely vase, and it's just so easy. Now, if you don't have access to Boston ivy, but it is actually, when you go for a walk, you'll find that there are so many walls just covered in it, and just waiting for someone to come and remove a few, and you really love them. But if you can't, I've got an alternative, which is really, really almost as good. I don't know how you recognise this. This is Helix, common ivy. And at this time of the year, it's producing seed heads. Now, it only produces seed heads where it's growing up as support, and it leaves its support, and it produces these. And when they're fertilised, they will will gradually go darker and darker and plumper, and they'll be black. And these will be available right through to February, March next year. And is one of the best things in the flower world. And you can forage for this because there's so much of it. And I always think forage for personal use, but don't forage if you're doing it commercially, because there's a limit how many foragers could be out there. But just mass this in the vase and do exactly what I did with these leaves, and you've got a superb arrangement. This also is great for making garlands and wreaths. But oh, incidentally, I do have a 40-minute video on the ultimate Christmas wreath, which covers, well, I'd like to think it covers absolutely everything, and it's £10. So if you want to do www.judithblacklock.com, you'll see details on how to buy it. It's okay.
So Judith, talking about 40 minutes, you've got 20 minutes kind of to keep going. So 20-minute time.
Right. Well, I'm just going to bring in here something very interesting. This is my son gave me for my birthday a big box that rattled. And I thought, oh dear, you know, he was a bit nervous, you know, he's a 41-year-old. So I thought, well, interesting, but I don't think it's floral. But I was so wrong. This box that rattled produced these. So I just want to show you them. And I don't know if anybody there can tell what they are, but I think there are over 1,000 pieces, and together he and my granddaughter, aged 5, produced this wonderful mix, almost like dinosaur Lego flowers. But look at the jug. That was a present for my daughter for my birthday. And if you've got something lovely and handmade, you can put anything in it and it'll look good. And as long as it pleases you, that's all it matters. And these Lego flowers thrill me. I'm delighted with them. Just to digress, but it's the importance of having a beautiful container just makes everything so much nicer. Now I'm going to go on and I'm going to do dried flowers, because dried flowers are very much of the moment. I wrote a book about dried flowers, 25 years ago, and nobody's turned the pages of the dried flower book for so many years, and all of a sudden it's all come back. And I love dried flowers. They're different. If I had the choice, I would always go for fresh. But dried flowers are something different, and they give something special in the home. And of course, they don't die. We've got them forever. And we've got hydrangeas here and some lavender that follow the shape of this rather original S-shaped container. Very, very easy. And you just place a hydrangea around the edges and then push this through so it stays in place. And I'm going to ask Kitty to get me a hydrangea, the green hydrangea, because at this point, I want to talk to you about hydrangeas. People want to know, how do I dry hydrangeas? And there's quite a lot behind it. And I want to show you this beautiful green one that has dried, and it's dried like a dream. And I have got a fresh one somewhere, which I brought in for this occasion, because I want to show you the stage at which you pick a hydrangea if you want it to dry. And we're coming up to the perfect season. As late as you can before the frosts, you cut them. But do remember that if you cut all the heads off a hydrangea, you'll have no flowers the following year, because hydrangeas grow on old wood. Now, this hydrangea, which is in my garden this morning, is nearly ready. And the reason I know it's nearly ready is because if I touch it and I pick the very firmest one I've got, it's almost bounces off my hand. It's really strong to the touch. That means that it will dry well. The darker the colour of your hydrangea, the more likely it will dry well. But you've got to dry it slowly. And so what I do is I will put the stems, I'll remove the lower leaves like that, because I want the water. And I will just cut the stem again, I think you know now, 45-degree angle, and I will place it in a little shallow water, about 2-3 centimetres. and I will not add any more water, but I will let it slowly dry. The slower it dries, the less crinkly the petals become once dry. So I don't hang it upside down, I let it dry slowly in water. It's a general rule, if you try and dry, or even buy flowers, March, April, May, June, you will have the likelihood that those will die after a few days because they're not mature enough. The more mature hydrangea, the darker it will be, generally speaking, and therefore more likely to dry, more likely to last. But they're a fantastic flower, and as you'll observe, nice round shape. So often I use these as the focal point, the focal part of my large-scale designs, such as pedestals. There is no other flower I like more. Oh, no, very few flowers I like more. But you can see that there's very little difference between the two. Now I can use this in the autumn and in winter designs, and it will last for years before it fades. And one other thing, if you want a flower to retain its colour once it's dried, keep it out of direct sunlight. If you keep it in direct sunlight, it will fade it and it will go very tired very quickly. All right, I digress. I'm just going to go on to my flower that I mentioned earlier that people are usually pretty disparaging around, and that is the carnation. And I created a contemporary design, a contemporary design like this, and it almost looks as if I've put together 4 peonies, and they're not, they're carnations. And you can, if you are in the professional world, if you're doing a wedding, and peonies are so difficult, which stops them being my favourite flower, because a bit like a lily, they open when they want to. And there's no encouragement really. Warm water, does it work? This, that, and the other. Nothing really works. They just got to bide its time. But a carnation is very reliable. And to do this design, I just put together a little batch like that, and put a bit of tape around it. Put it in here, and then I took the aspidistras that I used earlier, but I stack them. And that means I take this and I just put it through the centre and down into the other flowers. And then it's not behaving itself. Oh, it'll do. Like that, to make the nice little tight bunch, and then wedge them in there. And that design, because of the beauty and the longevity of that carnation, that will last 3 weeks. Now, if you want to know about carnations, how to tell if it's going to last, is there a carnation I could have? I can use one of these, but I can just show you here how to make it last. Here. The more vertical the flower, so if it's like that, more like that, it's a fresher flower because it goes flatter. Look at the calyx, which is the green part surrounding the flower. Check that it's nice and fresh with no brown marks on it. And check that there's no stamens coming out of the centre, because that is a sign that it's a little bit older. So that is in perfect condition. Now, I have to be aware of time. I just want to show you this. Oh, this contemporary design. This is a very awkward vase. You can see why it's awkward. It's very thin. And I am running a class tomorrow, and I received these anthurium when I should be receiving pineapples. Yes, that's how they're. So you've got to work with them. So I put together a contemporary design using Fatsia japonica leaves. Now, if you've got a garden, a Fatsia japonica is one of the easiest things to grow. It grows like a weed. It produces leaves, it grows in the shade, it grows in the sun. This is a variegated one, but the plain green one is equally useful. And I've just put a group of them there and put the 2 anthurium there. Now, these are beautiful, beautiful flowers. They're not everybody's taste. They're very modern, they're very contemporary. But I just love this. The spadex here matches the vase so beautifully. I found it rather irresistible. And then I just put a flurry of bear grass down the side so that to match the asymmetry on the other side. If you are wanting to start doing flowers, symmetry is so much easier to achieve an asymmetry, which means symmetry means take a line down from the tallest stem, and one side has got the same approximate visual weight as the other side. And symmetry is always, it's steady, it's pleasing. But good asymmetric design is very special and always pleasing. You know, it's exciting to have a go, especially when it works. It doesn't always. So I'm going to put that back here. And then I'm going to go back to another low dish, which I've got some dahlias. Now, I love the big dahlias. I like the sort of very loose dahlias. These dahlias came in from Holland, and they're quite solid. They're the pom-poms. It's the one I don't buy, but anyhow, I've got them. So again, let's make something with them. And I was wondering about my turntable, which I had in here, put in here, low bowl pin holders. And I'm going to be using just a pin holder. And then I've used, do I come back here? Just to show you how to do, well, how many stems? 1, 2, 3, I think there's 5 stems there. And just to place them on a pin holder, dahlias have got hollow stems, therefore they're much happier on a pin holder than any sort of foam. And then I've just taken 3 begonia leaves, which I have grown in the garden. That's a begonia leaf. They're called elephant's ears sometimes, but they are long-lasting, tough, like an elephant's ears, I presume. And then I put some stones at the bottom, which is just giving ballast. And again, if you can see the pin holder, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. And it's just a very clean design, but you could do this design with iris. And I'm just going to quickly take this out and show you something I want to do with pineapples. So I'm going to take those over to Chrissy, and she's going to take everything out so that I can put the pineapples in. And then just talk to you about these. These are called preserved roses. And you can come up with little designs like this that don't cost a lot of money. But what I'm trying to do is when I've got a container, I like to use something most of the time that's got a neutralish colour and hasn't got a shiny texture. Oh, there's a tip on something that you saw earlier. Matte textures are much more in harmony with flowers, especially if you want the flowers to shine. But these aren't real roses. Well, they are real roses, but they're what we call preserved roses. So they have been treated with glycerine so that the petals remain flexible. And but the only problem is you lose the stem, but a little short stem is fine for many designs. And then they are dyed, but they're in natural vegetable dyes, and they will last. They say there's only got a life on them of a couple of years, but I think they last very much longer. One thing you have to be careful of is that it is a hot, humid atmosphere. It can leak a little bit, but in a design like this, on a sideboard or wherever, on a table, at the office, it just gives pleasure for years, and very few people would not know it's the real thing. Now I'm going to go back to my container so I can show you the pin holder just in that bowl. And it's a dish really, isn't it? And then I'm going to try, these are my latest discovery, but if you couldn't get these pineapples, you could use the brassicas that are available and are sold in many of the shops. And I'm just going to place those on my, to come up with a tropical design. And oh, I know what I was going to tell you, odd and even numbers. It's the most frequently asked question is, do you have to have an odd number? And I must categorically say, no, you don't have to have an odd number. Did you notice in this one here, I used 2. And for me, that 2 was far more exciting than using 3. And I have to be a little bit careful that with Asian people, 4 is a very unlucky number, and I would avoid using 4. But otherwise, I'm quite happy. So I am going to firmly put those 4 And I'm going to pray that they're not going to fall over. And they seem to be doing a very good job of falling over for me. And then, fingers crossed, I'm just going to take some of this now. Oh, choice tomato, take a little bit off there, is mock orange. And if you, well, you have to be very, you know, am I beginning to regret doing this? And the answer is probably yes, but I'm going to persevere. Let's just have 3. There we are, there's my tropical island. Then I'm going to cut a little bit of the choice here and just put it down at the bottom, like this, and go all around. And I'm getting ready for the questions, but I'm going to go back to the, Chrissy could just show the people watching that particular arrangement, and by now they might have a good idea of what's wrong with it. And if they don't, I've not been teaching very well. So even something like that will cause attention, and those will last and last and last. And I love the contrast with the lime green. This is Limelight is what it's called, and Sundance is the one in the garden. And I'm just going to put one more stem in there, like so. So there's something a little bit different for you, and I fully appreciate what you're able to say. But then flowers are what please you. That if it pleases you, that's all that matters. And there's so much beauty, there's so much joy to be gained. And as soon as you've got flowers in a home, when you sort of open the door and you can see some flowers, it just brings it alive and it makes it a welcome. And if you want more, I've got a whole load of books out, and I've got Floral. I knew I should have got rid of it quickly before it started to move. I've got a magazine which I produce quarterly, which is called Flora, and it's packed full of ideas, step-by-step, and do you think 2 are better? No. Lots and lots of different ideas for you to enjoy, and we've got a big special Christmas supplement in the next issue. And without more ado, I think I better move this quickly before I go to another wall. So, Chrissy, could you take that one away, and I will just see that I've covered all the designs I came up with. If you could there. And one last thing, I know, it's this one. This one here is my gladioli special. And if you can see it here, how could I do this so that people could see, Chrissy? Gladioli are very straight, very dominant flowers. And I always like to continue the vertical movement. I never put a gladioli at an angle like that. It's got to be vertical. And then the only thing that this has got at the bottom is some cordyline, which matches the container. And it just creates a little bit of interest. And with gladioli, which is very heavy, just to say that if the tip has got a bend at the top, it's never going to straighten. Now you can nip it out, and I've been talking to research parties and they said it doesn't matter if you actually take out the top. Some people do say it encourages flowers lower down the stem to open. So that's your choice. But what I would always say, if you're using water in a vase, use cut flower food. It will make your flowers last longer. It really does work. And also the latest research, I had heard that Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, had said that add lemonade to the water, it makes her flowers last longer. And I was being a bit thinking, oh, I don't agree with this at all. But I have, in my article for Flora, which is in the next issue, on how to make your flowers last longer, they say it is absolutely right. Lemonade does make your flowers last longer. So apologies, Duchess of Cornwall, you were right. And there's lots of other tips in there, such as that if you've got a rose, the latest research says that you remove all leaves that are below the waterline. That's the same for every single flower there is. But for roses, you don't take off any more. And also for your stoma lisianthus, you don't take off any more, because it draws the water at the stem to the flowering head. I've also heard the same about sunflowers. So if you've got any particular flower you want to tip on, you can ask me. And also, if we just go back to this one, you have a last look at it, and then perhaps we'll have somebody coming in and perhaps with their ideas of what's wrong with it, and I can give the answer. Now, as that come up to my time, I'm usually overdo my time slot, so
we are kind of we're teetering just on the brink there. Now, we have had lots of questions coming, both through our chats and through our question and answer. However, we are actually running, we might not be able to get through them all. So really, I've got time for only really about one or two. So what I'll do is I'll start at the beginning. So one of the questions we had right at the start is, what are the best ways to keep arrangements looking their best in fluctuating temperatures?
Fluctuating temperatures, and what you do is mentioned earlier, the cooler the room, the better. Air conditioning, it has a draft, so it does take the moisture off the leaves. So best without, but just try and keep them cool. And then if you've got cut flower food in the water, you just keep it there and add water to it. And then you would take the stems out of the vase and you would cut a couple of centimetres off the bottom of the stem every other day, and then put them back into the flower food water. But it's the cooling that will make your flowers last, but don't put them in the fridge.
Right, so you have to forgive my pronunciation. What do you think of the new Agra wool foam in relation to the Oasis floral green foam?
Oh, that's a learner question. They are very, very similar. Agra foam is actually called Cedo now. They've changed the name because they don't call it a floral foam, they call it a floral alternative. And it's very, very similar. What more can I say?
So which flowers would you combine with Chinese lanterns, which are coming into bloom now? Which flowers would you combine with Chinese lanterns that are coming into bloom now and will last till spring?
Chrysalis Clinky. They are really would recommend planting them in your garden. They're biennial, so it'll take a few years to come through. But I think that they would look absolutely fabulous with orange roses. Will be this hypericum here, because you've got a change of form, but it's or even by themselves, or sometimes I take the individual heads off the stem and just pack them in vases, and then have one vase inside another vase and pack them and out between the two vases. So water, flowers in the center, and then round the outside. They don't lose their color, and you can keep them all year round. And actually, they will last for years without losing their colors. It's one of the best things you can have. And of course, you can eat fruits inside.
So what is your most hardest working flower in arrangements?
Probably a leucadendron or a leucospermum, because they last, a leucadendron will last up to 3 months. And my mother, and this is really interesting because I come from Cumbria, and my mother's house was always, kept quite cool, to say the least. She kept leucadendron for 9 months. And it was because her house is cool. She wouldn't like me to say it, but yes, it was thick. It's very hard working flower.
Well, Judith, we really are coming to the end now. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I've really enjoyed coming into your studio and seeing all the different techniques and tips. So thank you so much for imparting.
You're not telling me what's wrong with this arrangement.
Oh, well, we've had one or two, so go on, I'll quickly pop them out. So the vase is too tall.
Right.
But should the vase not dominate the design?
No, I don't think it's gorgeous enough. If it was gorgeous, I'd say yes, it can, but I don't think it is. I think with the gladioli coming straight out of the top and being, it would look much better. But the other thing is, there's too much going on in there. There's no cohesiveness. There's too many different things in there. They're too low. There's too many leaves below the rim of the container. And I actually take off all the leaves that fall beneath the rim of the container. because it just ran. And if you want it, there's too much texture going on. So you've got the texture, you've got more texture, and more texture again. Just too much going on. Try and keep it simple. It's so much more effective.
That's great. Thank you.
Basically, this container is about 30 centimetres tall, so we want flowers up here. Twice the height of the container. And it works very well.
I'll take that tip with us. Twice the height of the container. Right.
Twice the height of the container, never go wrong. Or the container is half the height of the stems.
Oh, even better. Well, thank you. Well, thank you. Really, thank you, Judith. It's been wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Well, thank you for listening, everybody.
Oh,
and if you've got any questions, you just email them to me. I always respond to emails. Anybody has? I'm always interested by people's questions. So don't worry, you can email.
Yeah, and don't forget, there's 2 lucky winners of books as well. So we'll be contacting those. But Judith, once again, thank you so much. Thank you, Chrissy, in the background. It's been wonderful. Thank you for being part of Handmade Oxford Online. And hopefully we will see you soon, definitely in person.
Oh yeah, good luck with the show this year, and in June you've got it actually live, haven't you?
We have. We're back the 23rd. I hope so. Fingers crossed. But once again, thank you so much, Judith. I shall say goodbye. And thank you for your time. Enjoy your evening. Bye bye now. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.